government of Alberta got involved.
Right, so it caught their notice because obviously this was big. This was big news.
Yeah, and then actually the institute that started this invention is a very prestigious diabetic research in North America. So
this is at the University of Calgary?
Yeah, and then that particular institute is called Julia McFarlane Study Center of Diabetic Studies.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
And then from then on, the government of Alberta invited me to invest in to commercialize this invention. So in the beginning, all this development happened at the university, but after our company took over this invention, the development happened in our company. That's what happened.
So these are incredible results, Dr. Kim.
That's correct.
I mean, I'm curious, what are people saying about this?
Oh, headlines in Asian countries, headline news media coverages, and then the Chinese Diabetic Association called this ideal cure. Korean Diabetic Association called it breakthrough cure. Doctors after doctors. Right now, even without any advertisement, we have about 50,000 users.
So people are excited about this. This is generating a lot of excitement.
And then a lot of TV coverages, and people are excited.
So what are the doctors saying? What's the medical community here saying?
Oh, they are. When we first started, people were skeptical. I can understand that.
What was the skepticism about?
Because up until 10 years ago, there was a kind of a general skepticism in North America that anything herbal is just not really scientific, but not anymore.
Right, that's changed dramatically now.
Yeah, after the studies after studies, right now it is already an established science. So right now, thousands of doctors are very open-minded toward this herbal treatment, and about our particular product, the leaderships of American Diabetic Associations recommend this treatment to their own patients. Many doctors are using this product on themselves. Right now, there is even a forum of doctors in which they exchange their first-hand clinical experiences about this product. So doctors are excited about this product too.
Sounds like there's a lot of credibility. And Dr. Kim, I'm curious, what are the pharmaceutical companies saying about this?
Oh, right now we have offers of distributorship from the largest pharmaceutical company of China, largest pharmaceutical company in Korea, and second largest pharmaceutical company in Taiwan.
So these people are taking this very seriously and coming on board with it.
They want to distribute this product in their own countries. But
what about closer to home?
We were once offered buying out. So basically, the largest pharmaceutical company in the world, they put quite sizable cash on the table, and then they tried to buy us out. So we refused it, but
what was your hesitation based on?
I was concerned that they were trying to buy this technology and try to shelve it, so that
it's going to be in direct competition with their pharmaceutical drugs.
It's called predatory acquisition.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So they offered $25 million if I sign right there, and then annual revenue, but compared with billions of dollars they invest in their researches, getting rid of these competitors, superior competitors, by putting $25 million is a very smart move, but I didn't agree to.
That's just the cost of doing business at that level.
That's correct.
Yeah. So Dr. Kim, I'm aware of a MediReport study that was done through the University of Calgary. Was it done over a 20-year period on this P700?
Oh, MediReport is reports about the study. MediReport is not the University of Calgary study. But it reports about several studies done on this product.
Right. Right.
So yes, it's 20 more years, and then clinical studies, and at various universities.
So how does P700 differ from the current treatments that we talked about earlier?
Basically, there are a few fundamental differences. While these pharmaceutical drugs and insulin injections are just for temporary control of blood sugar, P700 addresses fundamental problem. We are talking about reversal of diabetes. So people becoming normal. 70% of users become normal. So after they become normal, they don't have to use pharmaceutical drugs. They don't have to use insulin injection. They don't even have to use this P700 either. So we are talking about fundamental changes versus temporary control. That's one difference. Second, but still probably this is more important for some people, this is safe.
No side effects.
No side effects. And then actually all the ingredients are classified as foods in Southeast Asian countries.
So food, not drugs.
Food, not drugs. And then therefore, safety-wise, this is incomparable compared with all these horrendous side effects of these pharmaceutical drugs and insulin injections.
Right.
So this is safe. Thirdly, no resistance develops. So as time passes, actually people reduce the dosage of this product because people become normal.
So you wean off it, actually.
Wean off, yeah. Not as opposed to increasing
right.
the dosage of these pharmaceutical drugs and insulin.
Right. Well, but Dr. Kim, I'm curious about how P700 brings about permanent change. That's what you're talking about.
That's
yes?
correct. Let me tell you what it does. Among others, we'll just elaborate more on other things P700 does. But let me tell you that P700 shows that beta cell is the cells in the pancreas that produce insulin.
Right.
The numbers and strength of beta cells improve. Therefore, that's of molecular level change. Fundamental change. It doesn't disappear overnight. Secondly, with the use of P700, insulin resistance is gone. We call it upregulation of insulin resistance. Therefore, that's also fundamental molecular level change.
You're not talking about symptomatic relief here.
No. So once those changes happen, it doesn't disappear. Therefore, even months or even years after they become normal, they stay normal. Therefore, we call normalizer.
Right.
People became normal.
It sounds like, I mean, you're dancing around a word here. Cure is what it sounds like.
It depends on what you mean by cure. If cure means we identify one or two simple causes of a disease, and you get rid of those simple one or two identified causes, if that is meant by cure, P700 is not a cure. But if a person takes a certain treatment or certain food or certain drug, and then people becomes normal, if we call that a cure, we can call this a cure. But it's a matter of semantics.
Right, that's what it sounds like. But it sounds like it's making a huge difference in a lot of people's lives from what you're talking about.
That's correct.
Yeah. And Dr. Kim, you mentioned earlier that there were numerous natural herbal methods for treating diabetes.
Yeah. So
what are the other methods?
Right now, there are about more than 2,000 herbs and plant-based medicines, drugs that are shown to be effective to control blood glucose. But what I'm saying is, it is not true that all herbal products are safe. All herbal products.
So of these 2,000 herbs you mentioned, they're not all necessarily going to work
and
for
then
you.
I say 1,900 of them are toxic. So there are very dangerous herbs.
So this is not something to just enter into lightly.
Yeah. For example, some are toxic, even fatal. So, and other herbs, actually most of the diabetic herbs we see on the market in North America, they are anti-diabetic. They lower blood glucose by inducing artificial indigestion, meaning that if people, even if people take foods, it doesn't get digested. Therefore, you see lower blood glucose. I think that's not healthy. But anyhow, if you just look at the end results, it lowers blood glucose.
Right.
But it lowers blood glucose at a very high price.
Right. It sounds like it. So Dr. Kim, we're going to talk a little bit more later about some of those natural methods you've referred to. But in the meantime, when we're talking about alternative medications like these, what sort of criteria or standards exist? Oh,
whenever you are approaching this natural treatment or herbal treatment, I think you can use 7 or 6 or 7 criteria. Let me just go slowly here.
Sure.
One, the effects should be proven scientifically. A few anecdotes is just not sufficient.
Right. It's got to be more comprehensive.
Yeah,
than
I
that.
saw a person, I met a person who is okay. No, that's not sufficient.
Right.
There should be at least a statistically reliable studies. Okay? And then that study should be compared with the control group. So we should know whether this is just placebo effect.
Right.
So first criteria you should look at is it just anecdotal or the effects are proven scientific?
Right.
Secondly, it should be safe. So if it has toxicity, it has a side effect,
Right.
then you should get rid of it from your
So
candidate.
it's measured for all those categories.
No resistance. So it is also quite wrong to believe that herbal treatments do not develop resistance. Though it's not true.
So some do.
Some do. Some do. They have to increase the. Some are even more serious than.
And then the pharmaceutical.
That's correct.
Right.
So that's one criteria. And another criteria is this is very important. We should know how this works. Otherwise, we don't. If we don't know how it works.
You're playing a bit of Russian roulette there, then.
Yeah.
It's a gamble.
Yeah. So we call it modes of action.
Right.
Yeah. So modes of action should be identified. So unless, because all these herbal treatments should be used in conjunction with the traditional pharmaceutical treatment in the beginning.
Right.
Therefore, unless you know how this works, you cannot really combine the traditional treatment and this alternative treatment.
Right.
So
right.
you should know how it works.
Right.
And then also it should be available to everybody. If it is too rare, then we are talking about something which is not available to us. So
what's the point?
What's the point?
Exactly.
And then we should also look at whether its change is fundamental or long-term. We should look at that too, because all herbal treatments, if they are rightly or they are correctly combined or correctly used, they are supposed to bring long-term fundamental changes.
It's not in here for the short cure that you're talking about long-term.
That's correct.
Right.
And then another thing, another criteria we should look at is whether it addresses the whole body, whether it not only symptomatic treatment is valuable, but all these herbal treatments are supposed to mildly addresses the general health of the whole body. So you should look at that too. So if you look at all these criteria, basically you can select right herbal treatment for you.
Right. So that's good to know. So there are some pretty good guidelines there.
That's correct.
For selecting herbal remedies.
So if you apply these all criteria, it is not every day you find the herbal treatment that meets all these 7 criteria.
Right. So Dr. Kim, those are some really helpful guidelines for when we're talking about these alternative medications. But let's go back to P700 for a moment. You said during the break that people that don't have diabetes can take this drug as well. Or, sorry, this drug, it's not. It's a natural remedy.
That's correct.
Say more about that.
For example, myself, I don't have diabetes. My children, they don't have diabetes, but we all take this. The reason is, at first, let's talk about pancreas. If we keep our beta cells healthy,
right,
and then about the insulin resistance, if we keep our insulin resistance upregulated, basically we are preventing diabetes.
Right.
So that's the fundamental mechanism that leads to the diabetes. If we cut those mechanisms before it becomes diabetic, of course we are preventing. Actually, we did quite a bit of study here. We at first made many animals become diabetic. So there's a mechanism that triggers the animal to become diabetic. And then one group, this P700 was given. The other control group was not given. And then that group that was not given this P700, they all became diabetic, while 70% of the animals that were given P700, they didn't become diabetic. Anyhow, all the ingredients are regarded good for your health anyhow. So I take this P700 as a general health promotion, not particularly for diabetes.
So general health.
Yes.
And preventative.
Yeah, that's correct.
For diabetes.
That's correct.
So fascinating. It's got tons of application here.
Mm-hmm.
So Dr. Kim, let's backtrack a little bit. We talked earlier on the show about some of the signs and symptoms of diabetes. Some of the symptoms that I've been reading about, sexual dysfunction, it's a big issue with diabetes.
Especially male sexual dysfunction. 70% of male impotence comes from diabetes. And then when a person is diagnosed as diabetic, 50% of them, I'm talking male patient, 50% of them become sexually impotent at some point. So when they see doctors to discuss their problems in their sex life, the first question doctor asks is, do you have diabetes?
Right.
That's correct. And then imagine, the male sexual function is basically composed of the two aspects. One is nerves, and the other is the blood circulation is in capillaries. In the capillary, blood doesn't get circulated smoothly once you have diabetes. Blood becomes sticky, and capillary become clogged.
Right.
And then nerves are damaged. Of course, you have problems in sexual life. But this P700, people, because of this tremendous effects in the cleansing of these capillaries, and then these nerve damages are restored. Therefore, quite ironically, the restoration of their sexual function is the most frequently heard testimonies.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, and I would think, too, that it would probably be more important to be treating diabetes than taking Viagra in this case.
Viagra is dangerous for some people. Viagra is basically the squeezing the capillaries. So
if you're a diabetic, that's not a good combination.
So, diabetes people tended to have this coronary disease 400% more likely than ordinary people.
So and they're already at risk.
On the top of that, you squeeze your capillaries, arteries. Basically, we are talking about some serious dangers here.
Right, right. And Dr. Kim, what about fatigue?
Fatigue, chronic fatigue. As I said, for diabetic people, muscles don't get enough nutrition. So muscles are actually lack of nutrition. So they feel constantly fatigued.
Right. So this is going to be people really dragging themselves out of bed in the morning.
They lose muscle mass because they don't get nutrition. Also, as I said, because of this frequent urination and thirst, they tended to wake up during the night a few times.
Right. So they're not sleeping well.
Also, whole body aches. Right. The quality of sleep is gone. So they wake up very tired next morning, and then they live a very tired another day. So, and then keep on having a poor sleep next day. So this thing continues.
So really, really impacts quality of life in a huge way.
And then good news is the P700, invariably, without exception, people say they just recover their energies in their life.
So their energy levels dramatically improve as a result of using P700.
Yeah. So if we know how P700 works, that's a very natural conclusion.
So it makes sense from what you've described.
Yes.
Yeah. And so what's the correlation between diabetes and weight loss, or weight gain, I should say?
Do you remember the visual cycle we just mentioned just a moment ago? Because of that, once you have diabetes, it's almost impossible to control weight.
You've got everything against you.
Yeah. And then if you are obese, it is almost impossible to control diabetes. So I'm quite frustrated when people say when you have diabetes, you should control your weight. It's just
how do you do it?
How do you do it? You're just repeating the question. It's not suggesting a solution.
Right.
So for diabetes people, there are inherent reasons why they find it so difficult to control their weight. So there should be something else except in addition to saying you should control diet. It's just repeating the question.
But what's the impact of P700 on controlling weight?
Actually, when the former president of American